I guess not only the next decade, but I would say even the next 20 years only holds good things for India. Right? As they say, the tailwinds are sort of with us. I look at it, I've been now working for the last 28 odd years, and I think I've been very fortunate. I always say that I'm in the right place at the right time, which is India. But when do you work out? Do you work out only when you have a major health problem, or do you work out to stay fit? And the same applies to companies. They hire us when they want to get fitter. They are fit. They could be fitter, they want to become the fittest. As you look at it, a leader can actually make a big difference to change literally, I would say, destiny of teams, the destiny of companies, right?
A very good morning to everyone. This is Ansh Anand. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Punjab Jewels, and I'm honored here to be at the 31st IMA International Management Conclave. And I'm here with none other than Mr. Alpesh Shah, who is the Managing Director of Boston Consulting Group, India. Boston Consulting Group, for those who don't know, is one of the top 3 management consulting companies, not just in India, but in the entire world. And I'm honored here to be with Mr. Alpesh Shah here today. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much.
So, sir, I must mention that we just came here from your talk, and I must say that it was extremely valuable. Your insights gave us an idea of how India is growing and how, if India wants to be one of the top 3 economies in the world, what are the steps that it needs to take and how we as individuals can contribute to that. So my first question to you is, what do you think the next decade holds for India?
I guess not only the next decade, but I would say even the next 20 years only holds good things for India. Right? As they say, the tailwinds are sort of with us. I look at it, I've been now working for the last 28 odd years, and I think I've been very fortunate. I always say that I'm in the right place at the right time, which is India. But as I look at it, the next 20 years or the next 10 years are going to be even better. And in fact, as I look at it, I can tell literally all of you, there is no better place, no better country to be in than India. It is going to continue rocking, and if take one of the metrics of growth, I think there's nothing slowing India down. And as you would have seen, I think it's in today's newspapers, or was it yesterday, that even the last quarter, India has grown at about 8.5%. And this, when you compare it relatively to what the rest of the world is going through, it is even more remarkable. So I see that journey continuing. And, I think, I don't know who, but somebody said this, that this is going to be India's century. So it's not only the next decade or 2 or more, but it's India's century.
So, sir, one of the things that you mentioned in your talk that I found very insightful was that there are going to be approximately 350 million people in India who are going to be over the age of 50 by 2030.
Right.
So one of the most common narratives that we hear when we talk about, the growth of India, India's potential, we talk about the youth a lot, which definitely remains an untapped potential still within India. But the perspective that you gave, that when we look at the youth of India, we must not forget that we also have a huge, portion of the population who in the coming years is going to be over the age of 50, and why that matters to us, especially in the world of business, is because a majority of the purchasing power of the country holds with them. So how do you think, as a business person, how should I look at the demographics of India and how it is growing?
So as a business, depending on whatever business you're doing, I think India is so large that any segment that you touch is going to be very large. And so you have to decide what is your sweet spot. Any business, right? And you could have multiple sweet spots, but yes, as you said, a lot of young people. So yes, you have to think about, depending on the products, what services you offer for the young ones. But at the same time, not forgetting, as you said, that there are already 250 million plus, but there will be 350 million people over the age of 50. And India does not have as good a data set as some of the other developed markets, but that set of people over 50 is going to be controlling 60-70% of the wealth in this country. And so if you're running a business, not serving that segment is a big risk. Now what does that mean? We will say, no, we don't not serve them, but we'll offer products. But for example, right, whichever business you pick, whether it's electronic items, whether it's financial services, whether it's jewelry, who are you gearing your products towards? Right? Is your product geared towards a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, or a 60-year-old? And you might argue, but the differences will be very subtle, but there will be differences. For example, I can tell you, I now need my reading glasses to read. If you give me an electronic item where I can't read anything on it, even a phone, if it does not have a feature to increase the font size, I will never touch it.
Very true.
But it sounds very simple and stupid, but that's just one tweak that you have to do if you really want to serve a different segment. Right? So you have to make products which are amenable to segments. So that's one cut, which is an age. The other one, which I think a second cut I would say, which is very important for businesses to look at, is that of male versus female. Right? Mm-hmm. I laugh, but if you rewind 10 years, all advertisements, or most, were geared towards men. Because the belief was that men take decisions. And that's a myth I would like to bust. As BCG, we do a ton of research, primary research with customers every year. We have found that more than 50%, in fact, our number is 54% of all decisions get taken by women. Right? Across different product categories, including what people thought was dominated by men: cars, electronics, financial services, banking, investments, 54%. And the last cut I would look at is, which is very unique to India also, is geography. India is not urbanizing as fast as the rest of the world. When I was growing up, I always heard a magic number which said 26% of India was urban. This is in the 80s. Today that number is at 35%. The estimate is that by 2040 it will be 40%. That sounds like a lot from 26 to 40, but there is no other developing market which is less than 60. So India is not an urban country. It will not become an urban country. There is still a large market out there. So people who try figure out how to serve rural India, people who figure out how to serve tier 3, tier 4, again will be laughing all the way to the bank. So I would say at least there are 3 different cuts I would put out. Age, so older people in addition to the younger ones, women in addition to the men, and tier 3, 4 and beyond in addition to the metros and tier 1s.
So while India is growing exponentially, India's economy, India's GDP per capita, all of it, that does not mean that the companies in India have stopped facing challenges. They still face challenges, and that is why BCG exists, and that is what BCG helps them figure out. So what my question to you is, BCG deals with the best companies, not just in India, but across the world. So even the best companies in India, what are those kind of challenges that they are coming up with in the recent years, despite all the tailwinds pushing India towards growth, despite the policies favoring businesses? What are the challenges that these companies are still facing that you find on a day-to-day basis?
It's a fascinating question, right? Because as you pointed out, we work with some of the most successful businesses in the world. So why do they need us? And I'll take you back literally to 1996 when I started consulting. I asked my second client to say, why would you hire us? And now it's been 27, 28 years, so let me name them as well, right? So this was Asian Paints. And Asian Paints was at the peak of their capability. They were the market leader in paints in India. They had 55 to 60% market share in decorative paints. And even in the industrial paints, they were about 30-35% share. They were number one. The number 2 player was at 20% market share. So they were 3 times larger than the number 2 player. They still hired us. So I asked the CEO the question saying, why would you hire us? Only after he had signed on the contract, right? And he's, my analogy for him was, if it was a race, I said, you're in a car race, you are laps ahead, depending on whichever race you follow. I said, why do you need a consultant? So he says, Alpesh, is this not the best time to think of a consultant? He says, I'm laps ahead. Isn't this the best time to get out of the car and build a wall so that nobody else can follow me, right? So a lot of people hire us not because there are challenges, but because they're saying, I'm doing so well, how can I get better? A lot of people hire us when they have challenges. So I think you have to look at both. Right? When do you work out? Do you work out only when you have a major health problem, or do you work out to stay fit? And the same applies to companies. They hire us when they want to get fitter. They are fit. They could be fitter, they want to become the fittest. they're fittest, they still want to change the bar, or they're not fit and they want to recover, right? So we have a host of challenges that people come up with. We pride ourselves in the fact that, when companies don't even know the question they want to answer, we are the best partners. And so when there is change, as you said, this is a great recipe for somebody like BCG. Whenever there is change and exponential change, we thrive. So, for example, let's take the last few years, right? All the change on technology, on digital, on analytics, on AI, on Gen AI, as people are trying to decipher it, they reach out to us to say, can you help us? All this conversation on climate and sustainability and the green revolution, again, when people don't know how exactly to look at it, they come to us. But they also come to us for, I would say, standard things which used to happen in the past, saying we want to start a new business. So if a business or a business house is doing ABC but wants to serve a new segment, saying I know how to serve metros and tier 1s, but I don't know how to serve tier 2, or how do I use technology to transform my experience for my customers, or I've acquired this business, I don't know how to integrate it. So you see, there are events in people's or in corporations' lives where they look at this and say, I haven't done this often. I will benefit from having a partner in this journey who might have done something similar or different in a different geography, either the same thing in a different geography or a similar thing in a different business, which you can learn from and transplant across, right? So those are the kind of things we get hired for. Just one last thing, the single largest challenge that companies face is, you can argue both ways, is talent or execution. You can combine the two. The ideas, I think, are, there's this very famous quote which said that success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Right? I think Muhammad Ali had this quote. I think that's true. I don't think strategy is only 1%, but maybe it's 10. Right. But it's execution which is 80-90% of the value. That is where most companies struggle. That's where we come in. I would like to believe that we pride ourselves in the fact that we get change to happen on the ground. We are the best project managers. We are the best partners on that journey. And that's something that people do reach out to us for.
So what role does leadership play when it comes to companies facing challenges, or as you said, building a moat around their successful business? And the two most common problems that you say that companies face are talent and execution, which I would 100% agree with you on, and I'm sure most people watching would also agree with you on. So what role does a good leader play, and what makes a good leader who can face these challenges head on and keep the team together and make everyone go towards the same mission?
So I think leadership is a topic where a lot has been written on it. And it's difficult to capture in a few words, because literally every successful leader will have a different model. Okay? I'm a sports freak, so let me take a few sports analogies and then come to the corporate world, because the principles are all interchangeable. But you look at cricket, which in India everybody follows, or most people follow, and let's look at the captains of the last 20-30 years, right? Each of them was different. So if you look at the current Rohit Sharma, before that Virat Kohli, before that MS Dhoni, before that Ganguly, and you go on, right? Let's take a few lessons from that. So Ganguly was made captain. He was always called the Prince of Calcutta. People said he was lazy, he was not going to practice as much. But what is the one takeaway that I have from his leadership style, right? He backed people. So if you look at it, there were a bunch of people. So like him, Yuvraj was accused of being lazy, right? Of being the person who would not. Ganguly backed him fully, and Yuvraj delivered in spades. Harbhajan was called for chucking, and he actually had to undergo testing at the institute and show that his elbow was not bending. Ganguly backed him fully. Zahir Khan, same thing, was dropped. Ganguly backed him fully. Virender Sehwag was actually not finding a space in the middle order because of Ganguly, Dravid, Tendulkar and Lakshman. 3, 4, 5, 6, there was no space. Ganguly forced him to open. Sehwag had never opened anywhere in the world. Not in Delhi, not for his school team, not for his college team, nothing. Ganguly forced him to open. As they say, the rest is history. Sehwag went on to become the most explosive opening batsman in Test cricket. He had an average of 50 plus at a strike rate of 85-90. So he was the origin of baseball. There was no baseball before Sehwag. He created it, right? He's the guy who got a double century on nearly 195 on day one of a Test match, right? Which was unheard of. He backed all these players. If you look at the 2011 World Cup that India won, that was the entire team was backed by Ganguly. Right? So that was one thing. He backed people and he told them, I have your back, you will succeed. So that's one trait that a leader has to really put out. The second trait, right, if you just fast forward to Dhoni's era, Dhoni was a great one-day captain, right? Was a very average Test captain. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans of Dhoni who will kill me for this, but he is likely the best one-day captain I've ever seen. Because his read of the game, right, if you look at it, his gut feel for what will work when, how do you move people around, same thing. He also, like Ganguly, backed people, went across, but Ganguly built the foundation. Dhoni built on top of that, right? And he got to a stage where people under him became fearless. So Ganguly, if you remember the famous 2003 picture when India won, he took off his t-shirt because he wanted to tell the Brits that you can't do stuff in India that, because Flintoff had taken off his t-shirt in Bombay. So Ganguly in Lords, in supposedly the mecca of cricket, took off his shirt when India won the 2003 match. Under Dhoni's leadership, people became more fearless. Indians started sledging. It was unheard of, right? Dravid would sledge, Rahane would sledge, and people said, what happened? We had a meek India team, no longer, right? So he backed people, he got them more comfortable, he got them confident that they could win. And then comes Kohli, who I don't think had the same advantages. He just had raw energy. And if you look at two changes, he decided, to your point, what can a leader change? He decided that fast bowling was something that India had to get better at if India was to win outside India. Suddenly today you look at it, India is the best fast bowling group in the world. There are literally 10 bowlers who can bowl over 140. You look at Bumrah, Siraj, Shami, now past Ishant, you look at all these Mukesh. I mean, the list is, I can rattle off 10 fast bowlers who all bowl over 140. He went after that. And he also decided that the future was going to be about fitness. So he had the courage to drop people like Raina and Yuvi from the team. He now has a situation where, barring the odd player, we have the fittest, the best fielders the world has seen, right? So hence, as you look at it, a leader can actually make a big difference to change literally, I would say, destiny of teams and destiny of companies, right? So like I said, I will not name because many of these leaders are clients and I don't want to piss people off by naming one versus the other, so I'll pick a safer topic and talk about sports, but leaders make a massive difference.
In terms of attracting talent, in terms of creating a company and a culture where you don't just attract great talent, but that great talent thrives, because one common challenge that I see a lot of businesses face is that even if they're able to attract talent, the talent doesn't stay. The talent goes to the next company, whether that's better or worse for them, but they go to the next company and they don't stay at the same place. So how can a leader create teams that, one, stay together, the talent stays within the company, and also in a competitive environment, in this competitive realm of business, how can we make sure that while there is competitiveness against other companies in the same industry, there is no competitiveness within the company?
If I knew the exact answer to that, I would have been a billionaire by now. But there are some things that people do which really work, right? So the first thing, or not first, but one thing, first, I would say clearly you have to create a purpose. And I know it's a big word, right? People call this, now it's become the buzzword as well, purpose. Individuals don't stay just for the money. Money is useful. Money is a necessary condition, but it's not sufficient. First, so why would people join? And then two, why will people stay? So I think you have to have a value proposition for employees, for team members, which people value. And that proposition keeps changing and shifting over time. It's not constant. So you have to move with the times as well. There is conventional wisdom says, I keep hearing this, that in the past people stuck with one company right through. Then they say then people stuck with one profession right through. Now none of those are valid, right? Yes, so individuals' needs, individuals' changes, their desires keep changing. But what is your value proposition? Do you offer growth to the individual? Do you offer a purpose to the individual? Do you offer money to the individual? Right? Do you offer fun to the individual? And you can look at it, I think you have to offer a combination of many of these. So the first part is, what is your value proposition? How do you make sure it is staying current and alive where people value it? So that's the first part. But again, is that enough? Unlikely. You'll still have people, because all of us are different, and there's this fallacy, there's this belief that I can actually put a moat around and hold people. So people have contracts and stuff, which I think is passé. People have to want to stay, right? It's like any other relationship, right? I can't force you to be my friend. You have to want to be my friend, right? I can try and entice you. I can give you a lollipop. I can give you chocolates. But ultimately, we will only continue if you see value in that. So I think as corporates, you have to do two things. One is, how do you work on the value proposition? And again, it's unique and different for different people. How do you create the right culture where people keep growing? And then the second one, which is actually equally important, is, especially when you're growing, how do you also make it easy for people to, HR people use this term which is called onboarding, but it is how easy is for people literally create a plug and play model where I can just walk in and I can start creating value. Because if I don't believe I'm creating value, I'm going to leave. Right? I have to believe that I'm important, I'm making a difference. If I'm not making a difference, why am I doing this?
So it's been an honor to be able to have this conversation with you. I would like to thank you once again for your talk, for the insights that you shared with us, and thank you for being a part of this podcast and sharing further insights with us. This is Ansh Anand, the Chief Operating Officer at Punjab Jewels, and Mr. Alpesh Shah, the Managing Director at Boston Consulting Group at the 31st IMA International Management Conclave, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.